The crash in the sky, the desert, was quiet. Nothing moved. Just wind, sand, and silence. Jake Monroe stood outside his small metal hut, watching the sunset. The sky was glowing orange, and the heat of the day was finally leaving. Jake liked the silence. It was peaceful. After years of war and noise, this was his kind of heaven. Then it happened. A flash, a roar, and a long, burning streak across the sky. Jake's eyes widened. It was like a falling star, but bigger, brighter. It crashed far in the distance with a heavy boom. The earth shook. Birds flew out of the trees. Dust lifted in waves. Jake narrowed his eyes. "That wasn't a meteor," he whispered, grabbing his flashlight, a jacket, and his old military rifle, just in case. He jumped onto his dusty ATV and sped toward the crash site. After 30 minutes of rough driving through rocks and sand, he saw smoke in the distance. Black, thick, and rising like a signal. As he got closer, the ground was still warm under the tires. The smell of burned metal and strange chemicals hit his nose. He slowed down. A silver ship, curved, sleek, and broken, was half buried in the sand. Parts of it were still glowing with soft blue light. It didn't look like anything from Earth. He approached slowly. "If this is some kind of test, government, or alien joke, I'm not laughing," he muttered. Then he heard it. A soft cry, like a woman, but not human. He moved toward the sound, stepping over glowing wreckage. Then he saw her, lying beside the ship, half covered in a white energy field that flickered like dying fire. Was a woman. Her skin was a pale lavender. Her eyes were closed. She had silver hair tangled with sand and blood. Her body armor was cracked. She was bleeding from her side. Jake froze. This wasn't a costume. This was real. The alien woman groaned weakly, one arm lifted toward him. Jake ran to her. "Hey, you're alive, can you hear me?" he said, kneeling down. Her skin was cold. Too cold. He checked her breathing. It was shallow. Her chest moved, but slowly. She opened her eyes slightly. They were glowing blue. Her lips moved. She said something in a soft, strange language. Jake didn't understand, but he could feel the fear in her voice. "Okay, I got you," he said. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around her, trying to stop the bleeding with a torn piece of cloth. Her blood was dark purple and smelled like metal. But she didn't fight. She just looked at him. Her hand touched his chest weakly. "Vishari. Kendall," she whispered. Then her eyes closed again. Jake didn't wait. He lifted her carefully and carried her to his ATV. She was heavier than she looked, but he managed. As he drove back, he looked at her face again. She didn't look dangerous. She looked scared. Alone. Back at his hut, he laid her on his only bed. The place was simple, a solar-powered shack with one room, a generator, and a few tools from his army days. No fancy med kit, but he knew how to treat wounds. He cleaned her cuts, patched her armor, and kept checking her breathing. Hours passed. The alien woman didn't wake up, but her breathing got better. Her color returned. The strange glow on her body faded slowly. Jake sat beside her, drinking water, eyes on her the whole time. "What the hell are you?" he whispered. He thought of calling someone. The army? The government? News reporters? No. If they found her, she'd be locked up. Or worse. Something about her made him feel protective, like she was sent to him for a reason. Just before sunrise, she opened her eyes again, this time fully. She looked around, confused, afraid. Jake held his hands up. "Hey, you're safe," he said. She stared at him, her lips moved. "You helped me." Jake blinked. "You speak English?" Small words. "Slow," she said, her voice soft and tired. He smiled a little. No problem. I talk slow anyway. She looked down at her side, touched the bandage, then looked at him again. You saved me. Jake nodded. Yeah, you were dying. The alien woman stared into his eyes for a long time. Then she said something strange again. Salari is my name. Now, you are part of me. Jake raised an eyebrow. What does that mean? She closed her eyes again, but this time with peace on her face, as if something important had begun. Jake leaned back, confused, but he felt it too. Something had begun, something he didn't understand yet, but couldn't ignore. The bond of warmth. Jake didn't sleep that night. He just sat on the old wooden chair beside the bed, watching her breathe. Every few minutes, her skin shimmered. It wasn't normal light. It was like the surface of water under moonlight. Soft. Alive. Alien. The woman, Salari, lay quiet, her chest rising and falling slowly, as if every breath was a battle. Jake had seen many strange things in war, but this? An actual alien woman resting in his bed, covered in wounds, wearing broken armor, speaking in broken English. This wasn't war. This was something else. In the morning, she opened her eyes again. She sat up too fast and groaned in pain. Jake rushed to her side. Whoa! Hey, easy, he said, gently holding her shoulder. Her hand shot up and grabbed his wrist. Fast, strong. But she stopped. She looked into his eyes, then slowly let go. You, not enemy, she whispered. Jake gave a small smile. Took you long enough to figure that out. She looked around the room, confused by the tools, wires, the solar battery on the wall. Her hand hovered over a broken radio. You live here? Alone? She asked. Jake nodded. Yeah, quiet place. Good for thinking. She looked at him for a long time. Then, something soft entered her voice. You are strange. For a warrior. Jake blinked. How do you know I'm a warrior? She gently touched his arm right where the faded military tattoo was. Mark of fight. Your eyes. No pain, she said. Jake looked away. Maybe. But I'm done with war. Salari tilted her head. Then, why save me? He didn't have an answer. Not really. After a moment, he said, because no one else would have. She stared at him, quiet, as if trying to memorize his face. Then she whispered, where I come from. Saving life means more than thanks. Jake gave her some water and food. She refused at first, then accepted after he showed it wasn't poison. She ate slowly like someone used to rations. As she chewed, she looked at the small fire in the corner where Jake boiled water. This warmth, she said. It feels different here. Jake raised an eyebrow. Different how? She placed a hand on her chest. On my planet, warmth is duty. Soldiers share heat only during final nights, when they're ready to die. But this warmth feels alive. Like hope. Jake didn't know what to say to that, so he just poured more water in her cup. Later, as the day faded and night returned, Jake built a second fire outside. The desert got cold after sundown, and the stars came out fast, clear and endless. Salari walked out slowly, wrapped in one of Jake's jackets. She moved stiffly but held herself like a soldier, head high, back straight. She sat by the fire without a word. For minutes, neither of them spoke. Just the crackle of fire between them. Finally, she said, You know what Salari means? Jake looked at her. No idea. It means one who is no longer alone. Jake stared at her. Is that your real name? She nodded. Yes. But it also means something else. When spoken during Krovalun, he leaned forward. What's Krovalun? She hesitated. Her voice dropped to a whisper. It is sacred. It happens when a warrior faces death and is pulled back by another. In our culture, it means we are now bound. You saved me during the final breath. Jake's brow furrowed. What do you mean by bound? Salari looked at him seriously. You are now my Calvin, my bonded one. Jake blinked. Wait, like husband? Salari nodded slowly. Jake nearly choked. Whoa, I didn't sign up for that. I was just helping someone injured. To you, maybe, but to my people, this bond is eternal. It cannot be broken without shame. Jake rubbed his temples. This just keeps getting weirder. I can leave if this makes you afraid, she said quietly. Jake looked at her, her skin glowing softly in the firelight, eyes full of pain and truth. She wasn't joking. No, don't leave, he said, almost surprising himself. I'm not afraid, just confused. She nodded. That is fair. They sat in silence again. Then she added, I do not expect love. That grows like roots. But respect is the seed. Jake looked at her. For the first time, he didn't see her as an alien. Just a woman far from home carrying a culture he didn't understand. Yet somehow still human in the way that mattered. He stood up and offered her a hand. Come inside. You need rest. She looked up at him, then took his hand. And in that moment, something unspoken passed between them, like two stars orbiting closer without crashing. The sacred law of return, the next morning brought more than sunlight. It brought a ship. Jake woke up to a strange humming in the air, like thunder, but quieter, deeper. The sound vibrated through his bones. He rushed outside, barefoot, heart pounding. There, it was. A massive vessel descending slowly from the clouds. Black as obsidian, shaped like a dagger. No smoke, no flames, just silent power. It hovered above the desert like a god returning home. Salari stepped beside him, eyes locked on the ship. She didn't look surprised. They found me, she said softly. Jake looked at her. Your people? She nodded. The clan of Karl. They come for their own. Jake exhaled. Then that's good, right? You'll be safe. But Salari didn't answer. Her hands were shaking. By afternoon, the ship landed 2 dunes away. The sand shook. A ramp opened. Out came 6 alien figures, tall, armored in silver and black, their faces hidden by masks glowing with symbols. They moved like shadows, silent, controlled. At the front stood one without a mask. A man. His skin was darker than Salari's, more violet than lavender, and his eyes burned golden. He wore a long cloak that moved like smoke. Salari's voice dropped to a whisper. That is Varneth, my bloodkin, and my former betrothed. Jake blinked. Your what? Long ago. Promised. But I never accepted. The aliens walked toward Jake's shack. Varneth stopped when he saw Salari. His expression didn't change, but the air around him seemed to grow colder. He spoke in a sharp language Jake couldn't understand. Salari replied in the same tongue. The exchange was fast, heated. Then Varneth turned to Jake. He spoke slowly, in thick English. You are the human who touched what is not yours. Jake folded his arms. She was dying. I saved her life. Varneth's eyes narrowed. You committed a sacred act, and now you are caught in it. Jake looked at Salari. What is he talking about? She lowered her gaze. Crovalune is not just emotional, it is law. It is the sacred law of return. When a warrior is saved in the death moment, their soul is tied to the savior. Jake muttered, Why didn't you mention the law part earlier? I told you what mattered, she said. Varneth took a step closer. You have broken a chain thousands of years old. The bond must be completed or cleansed. Jake frowned. Cleansed? Varneth said. Either you accept the bond, or we take Salari back for nullification. It is painful, permanent. She will no longer be whole. Jake looked at Salari. Her face had gone pale. Not from fear, from shame. "She will be seen as impure," she whispered, as if she dishonored the ancestors. Jake's fists clenched. "So you're telling me, either I marry her or you erase her soul?" Salari turned away. "You owe me nothing. If you walk now, I will accept nullification." Jake felt his stomach twist. This wasn't just about culture or law. This was cruelty masked as tradition. He stepped between Salari and Varneth. "I'm not walking away," he said. Varneth sneered. "Then you must prove yourself." Jake smirked. "I had a feeling that was coming." Varneth raised his hand. A small silver sphere floated from his belt, glowing blue. It projected an image in the air. Two warriors locked in a ritual, surrounded by flame and symbols. "This is the trial of the flame," he said. "No outsider has survived it." Jake looked at Salari. "If I pass, what happens?" "You become one of us," she said. "Forever." "And if I fail?" she whispered. "You die?" Jake took a deep breath. "Well, I've died before, just didn't stay dead." That night, the desert became a stage. A large circle was carved into the sand using alien tech, glowing red like magma. Symbols floated in the air, humming softly. Jake stood inside the circle, barefoot, shirtless, only a blade in his hand, a strange curved dagger given to him by Varneth. Salari stood outside, the ring watching. Her eyes never left him. Varneth spoke. 3 trials. One of endurance, one of mind, one of truth. Only if you pass all, may the bond be honored. Jake muttered. No pressure. The first trial began. He ran across burning coals laced with electric fields, every step searing pain into his legs. He lifted heavy stones shaped like alien bones, while sandstorms whipped across his body. He fought a beast-like drone with claws of metal and breath like fire, but he didn't stop. Each time he fell, he looked at Salari and stood back up. By the time the final trial came, he was bleeding, limping, nearly broken, but still standing. Varneth walked into the ring. The trial of truth. Face your deepest self. If your heart lies, the bond dies. Jake looked around. Where's the challenge? Then, the ring glowed white, and Jake saw himself broken, angry, scared, his past screaming at him, his mother's voice, the war, his mistakes, the ghosts of who he used to be. But he didn't run. He faced them and whispered, I'm not that man anymore. The ring faded. Varneth's expression turned hard, but the symbols floating above turned green. The bond had been accepted. Visitors from the stars, the night after the trial of truth was eerily silent. The clan had left the ritual circle untouched, symbols still glowing faintly in the sand. The wind howled across the dunes, but the fire in Jake's chest burned brighter than ever. He had survived. He had been accepted. But the price of survival was only just becoming clear. Inside the hut, Jake sat beside the fire, wrapping his arms with bandages. His skin was torn, bruised, cracked with heat and pain, but he didn't care. Across from him sat Salari, staring at him like she was seeing a ghost. You were not supposed to pass, she whispered. Jake chuckled weakly. Nice to know you believed in me. That's not what I mean, she said, serious. No outsider ever passed. The trial reacts to truth, it burns away lies. Most humans, they break under the weight of what they hide. Jake looked into the fire. Yeah, well, I stopped lying to myself a long time ago. Suddenly, the sound of ships filled the sky. Jake jumped up and limped outside, Salari right behind him. Above them, 4 smaller crafts broke the clouds, sleek, black, shaped like razors. They flew in perfect formation and landed silently around Jake's hut, forming a square perimeter. Then a 5th ship descended, larger, gold and blue with intricate alien symbols glowing across its hull. The moment it touched the ground, the air shifted. Salari's eyes widened in fear. No, she whispered. Not them. Not now. Jake turned to her. Who are they? She didn't answer, just stared as the ramp lowered, and a new figure stepped out. She was tall, taller than anyone Jake had seen, almost 8 feet, glowing with presence. Her skin was like polished obsidian, her long robes woven with starlight threads. A crown of floating crystal shards hovered around her head like planets in orbit. Her eyes were like suns, burning gold. Salari fell to her knees. The Archaness, she whispered, High Mother of the Stars. Jake frowned. You're telling me she's like your queen? No, Salari said softly. Worse. She is the guardian of bloodlines, keeper of sacred laws, and she does not believe in love outside the stars. The Archaness stepped forward, her voice echoing unnaturally, as if the wind itself spoke for her. Bring me the human. The soldiers moved toward Jake, but he stood his ground. I'm right here, he said. She looked him over slowly, her expression unreadable. You've passed the bond trial. You carry the mark of Krovaloon. But you are still an outsider. A fracture in the pattern. Jake squinted. If you're here to break the bond, you're too late. No, she said. I am here to decide if you should exist at all. The atmosphere darkened. The sky dimmed. Clouds gathered unnaturally. The sand rose in slow swirls, reacting to her power. Jake whispered to Salari, What's she doing? Salari trembled. She's awakening the veil. The judgment of blood. She will scan your soul. If it does not match the pattern, she will end you. Jake stared at the Archaness as she raised one long hand. A beam of soft light shot toward his chest. At first, nothing. Then pain. Blinding. Burning. His memories, his regrets, his nightmares, all pulled from him like wires being yanked out of his brain. He screamed but didn't fall. The light stopped. Jake dropped to one knee, panting. Blood ran from his nose. His mind felt like glass on the edge of shattering. The Archaness stared. Then, she looked shaken. This is not possible, she whispered. Jake forced himself to his feet. What's not possible? You carry echoes of something lost, she said. Your soul. It mirrors the primordial flame, our original blood, before we took to the stars, before we became what we are. Salari gasped. You mean, he's one of the first mirrors? The Archaness nodded slowly. He is not just human, she said. He is a reflection of what we were, before we forgot. Jake looked at both of them, confused and frustrated. Can someone please explain what that means? Salari stood up. It means you're more like us than even we are. Jake raised an eyebrow. That doesn't help. The Archaness turned away. The bond cannot be broken, she said. Not because of law, but because of prophecy. Salari whispered. The flame of reunification. The Archaness nodded. You were not meant to be her savior, human, she said. You were meant to be our beginning. Then she turned, walking back to her ship. But before she stepped inside, she said something that made Jake shiver. Others will come. Not all will accept this union. Some will see your bond as a threat. Be ready. The ships rose and vanished into the stars. Silence returned. Jake stood alone in the desert with Salari. He looked at her. So, I'm basically space royalty now? She smiled gently. Not royalty, just chosen. He looked up at the stars. That's worse. They both laughed. But behind their laughter, a storm was brewing, one that neither Earth nor the stars were ready for. The trial of fire and mine too. Days after the Archaness left, Jake noticed something strange. The desert wasn't quiet anymore. The winds carried whispers, voices that weren't voices. The stars above pulsed, not with light, but rhythm. Like they were watching, waiting. Salari sat on a rock outside Jake's shack, staring into the distance. Her face calm, but her fingers trembling. Jake came up beside her. "You feel it too?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. The veil is thinning." Jake blinked. "The what?" She turned to him, eyes sharp. "The boundary between thought and flesh, between what we believe and what becomes real." Jake sighed. "Great. First I pass your soul trial, then get accepted by the Space Queen. Now I'm stuck in a cosmic hallucination." But Salari didn't smile. "You are being summoned again," she said. "Not by tradition, not by culture, but by the deep pattern itself." Jake crossed his arms. "And that means what exactly?" "It means the universe wants to test if you're truly worthy of the bond. Not by law, not by blood, but by your mind." That night, Jake didn't dream. He entered a trial. He woke up inside a strange place, neither Earth nor alien. He was floating in a black void, but his feet stood on solid light. The stars spun around him like wheels. Whispers echoed in every direction. Then, a figure appeared. It was him, but not him. This version wore a soldier's armor. His face was young, cold, ruthless. Jake's breath caught. This was the version of him that never left the war. The mirror. Jake drew a blade and spoke in a voice made of ice. "You chose peace. You chose to run. You chose her. You think love makes you strong?" Jake clenched his fists. "You think war makes you right?" "No," the doppelganger said. "It made me real." The duel began, not just of blades, but of memory. With every clash, Jake was forced to relive the worst of himself. The innocence he couldn't save, the anger he carried, the friends buried in sand and gunpowder. Each memory hit like a punch. But Jake didn't fall. He didn't dodge the truth. He embraced it. "I am all of that," he whispered. "But I'm still standing." The void cracked. The mirror Jake dissolved into golden dust. Then another figure emerged from the darkness. This time, it was Salari. But she was crying, bleeding, alone. "You will leave me," she said. "Like your kind always does." Jake's heart twisted. "I won't." "You say that now," she replied. "But when your world calls, when your people offer you a seat at their table, will you still choose me?" Jake walked toward her. "You're not just a person, you're my person, doesn't matter what planet I'm on." The false Salari vanished. Light burst all around him. Jake gasped as he woke up. In the real world, sweat dripping, heart racing, Salari was already beside him, hand on his forehead. "You passed," she said. Jake looked at her, confused. "You knew?" She nodded. "The trial of fire tests your will. The trial of mind tests your truth. The pattern allowed you through." Jake sat up. "I didn't fight monsters this time." "You fought yourself," she whispered. "And that is harder." But before Jake could respond, a signal beeped on the comm screen Salari had connected. To her people's network, she checked it. Her face went cold. "What is it?" Jake asked. "Earth," she said. Jake frowned. "What about it?" She turned the screen toward him. It showed an Earth military satellite feed. It had locked onto the crash site. A voice came through. Scrambled, human. "Unidentified vessel confirmed. Target marked. Operation Retrieval Hawk begins in T-14 hours." Jake's blood ran cold. "They're coming," he whispered. Salari stared at him. "This was never just about us," she said. "Your people see me as a threat. They'll come for both of us." Jake stood up, rage flaring behind his tired eyes. "Then we make them understand. I've passed your trials. Now it's time to face mine." As the stars turned overhead, Jake prepared for his next battle. Not with aliens, with humans. And this time, he wouldn't be fighting alone. The Oscure that shook stars before sunrise, the desert was alive with tension. Jake stood on a dune watching the horizon. In the distance, black dots floated in the sky, growing bigger with each passing minute. Earth's military dropships, cold, fast, precise. They weren't coming to talk, they were coming to take. Behind him, Salari stood quietly, armored now, in her clan's ceremonial robes, half military, half sacred. Silver plates across her arms shimmered with light. A long ribbon flowed from her waist, marked with ancient runes. She walked up beside him. "They'll try to separate us," she said. Jake nodded. "Let them try." She looked at him. "If they shoot, will you shoot back?" Jake paused. "Only if they aim at you." An hour later, the dropships landed. The sand kicked up in thick waves, helicopters circled above. Out stepped a dozen men, in black armor, guns drawn, faces hidden. Jake stepped forward, hands raised. "You're late, I saved her days ago." One of the soldiers lowered his visor. "Jake Monroe, former Recon Delta, discharged off-grid. You are harboring a Class 7 biological anomaly. You are to stand down and hand her over." Jake smirked. "Yeah? What's the plan after that? Throw her in a lab?" The soldier didn't answer, but a second figure stepped out, unarmed, wearing a military commander's uniform, General Ror. Jake blinked. "You?" Ror gave a cold smile. "You always had a habit of finding trouble, Monroe." Jake's fists clenched. "She's not a threat." "That's not your call," Ror said. "She's an alien. We don't know what her blood carries. What she knows. What she wants." Salari stepped forward, speaking calmly. "I want peace." Ror tilted his head. "And yet your kind came here in stealth, crashed near a former soldier, and are now bonded by a ritual even your people barely explain. That doesn't sound like peace, that sounds like infiltration." Jake shouted. "You're not listening, she almost died. She didn't choose to land here, she was running from her own." But Ror raised a hand. The guns pointed directly at Salari. In that moment, time slowed. The wind stopped. The bond in Jake's chest pulsed. He stepped in front of her, arms wide. "You shoot her, you shoot me." A humming noise rose from the air around them. Salari's armor began to glow. The symbols across her sash flared, burning golden lines into the sand below their feet. Then, boom. The earth cracked. A pulse of energy exploded outward, knocking the soldiers off their feet. Guns flew, radios sparked. In the center of the blast stood Jake and Salari, unharmed. The sky above shimmered. A beam of light shot down from nowhere, pure silver energy wrapping them both in a twisting helix of symbols and heat. It wasn't an attack. It was the bond awakening. From orbit, the alien clan's mothership stirred. The moment the sacred bond completed, a signal echoed through space, older than both human and alien code. It wasn't just symbolic. It was cosmic truth. Back on Earth, every soldier stared in awe. The fire faded. Jake and Salari still stood, hand in hand. Salari looked at the stunned troops. "Our bond is complete. You cannot undo what the universe has already accepted." General Ror looked shaken. "What was that?" Jake exhaled. "Something bigger than both our governments." Ror hesitated, then he pointed at Jake. "You've just made enemies on both sides, Monroe. Neither Earth nor the stars will fully trust you now." Jake shrugged. "I don't care." Ror turned and walked away, waving the soldiers to stand down. "Watch your back," he muttered. "The war for her is just beginning." That night, the desert was silent again. Jake and Salari sat beside a fire, the stars reflecting in her silver eyes. "You didn't have to bond with me," she said quietly. Jake looked at her. "Yes, I did." "Why?" he smirked. "Because no one's ever called me Calvin before and scared the hell out of two empires by doing it." She smiled, then rested her head on his shoulder, and in that moment, they weren't just human and alien. They were the first spark of something new. A bond that shook stars like and might one day rebuild the galaxy. The future. They never saw. The world did not end. No alien fleets fired on Earth. No governments collapsed. No gods arrived to judge the living and the dead. Instead, everything got quiet. Too quiet. For 3 days after the bond ceremony in the desert, no one came. Not Salari's clan, not Earth's military, not even the satellites above sent more drones. Just the wind and the heat and the heavy silence of something watching but not speaking. Jake didn't trust it. "Something's coming," he said, loading an old rifle, just to feel the weight in his hands. Salari stood near the edge of the dune, her eyes locked on the horizon. "No," she whispered. "Something's already here." That night, Jake woke up to a strange sound. Not loud, not violent, soft crying. He turned to find Salari curled against the wall holding her stomach, her eyes glowing faintly as tears ran down her cheeks. "Salari?" She looked up, lips trembling. Something changed. Jake rushed to her side, panic rising. "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "No, not hurt, just awakened." Then she took his hand and placed it gently over her lower abdomen. Jake froze. A soft thrum pulsed under his palm. Not like a heartbeat, not like a machine. Something new, alive, tiny, strong. Salari smiled, tears falling freely now. The bond created life. Jake couldn't speak. The desert, the war, the rituals, the soldiers, all of it led to this? He laughed, half in shock, half in awe. "I didn't even know it was possible." Salari nodded. "Neither did I." She touched her stomach again, her fingers trembling like leaves in wind. In our culture, conception by bond is a myth, a dream. No child has been born of Crow Valoon since the stars turned cold. Jake rubbed his face. "So we're having a miracle alien human baby. Great, I can already hear the headlines." But behind the jokes, he felt something strange. Hope. The next morning, the silence ended. A new ship arrived, but not from Earth, and not from Salari's clan. It was ancient, rust-colored, cracked and humming like a dying heart. Symbols across its hull pulsed in a forgotten language. Salari's face went pale. "The Forgotten Court," she whispered. Jake raised a brow. "That's a friendly name." "They're not friendly," she said. "They are the Watchers of broken laws. They arrive only when something unnatural threatens the balance of the stars." Jake grabbed his jacket. "Awesome. Let me guess, they heard about our little miracle?" The ship didn't land. It hovered, casting a massive shadow over the desert. A portal opened mid-air, and a single figure descended. Floating, not walking. He had no face. Just a mask of stone carved with runes older than writing. His cloak fluttered, but no wind moved. Jake stepped forward, hand on Salari's shoulder. "We didn't ask for trouble." The Watcher's voice boomed, not from his mouth, but inside their minds. "A bond has formed beyond pattern. A child has awakened the roots. You have bent law with love." Jake clenched his jaw. "So what? You here to erase us?" "No." Silence. "We are here to learn." The Watcher floated closer to Jake, and Salari then stopped. A small orb emerged from his chest and hovered between them. It pulsed like a heartbeat. "Place the hand of the bonded and let truth reveal itself." Jake looked at Salari. She nodded once. They both placed their hands on the orb. It shone, bright, white, endless. Visions flooded them. A galaxy split by fear, worlds broken by laws older than mercy, and in the center, a child with silver skin and blue eyes holding hands with both human and alien alike, unafraid, unchained, not a destroyer, but a bridge. The light faded. The Watcher bowed his head. The future has already begun. What was once forbidden must now be rewritten. He floated back toward the ship. As he left, the winds shifted. Salari whispered, "He didn't destroy us." Jake exhaled. "No. He gave us permission to exist." Days passed, weeks. Word spread, quietly at first. Among Salari's people, The tale of the human who survived Crow Valun spread like wildfire. Some called him a holy mistake. Others, a sign the universe still had secrets. Among Earth's leaders, panic faded into paranoia. But they didn't attack again. Instead, Jake and Salari were watched, monitored, respected, and feared. One day, Salari sat in the sand, drawing symbols with her fingers. Her stomach had begun to show. Jake sat beside her, holding a metal plate, covered in wires. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Building a transmitter," he said. "One that speaks in your language and mine. I want to tell the story properly." "Why?" Jake looked up at the sky. "Because one day, our kid's gonna ask who we were. And I want the stars to already know the answer. And somewhere, deep, in the black between suns, others were listening. Some in awe, some in fear, and some already preparing to test this new union, because the future they never saw was now being written by two hearts that the universe could no longer ignore.